بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيد الأنبياء والمرسلين وبعد. Before I start with today's hadith, I just wanted to add, one of the brothers just reminded me right now that when this masjid was founded, Sheikh Yusuf Qaradawi rahimahullah ta'ala actually had a via Zoom or online telecom address to all of the congregations, and he even helped towards the founding of this masjid. So his fingerprints and his efforts are actually in our masjid that we're benefiting from as well. So may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala elevate his status. Ameen. The hadith that we're doing today is reiterating the importance of being true and genuine, being transparent and clear. You know, in the business world today, something that everyone looks for is transparency, right? What is transparency? That my accounting is straight, my interactions are clear and straightforward, there's no misunderstanding, there's no misjudgment. That's very important from even a worldly perspective. In the hadith we're talking about today, Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, he says, Ayatul munafiqi thalath, that the signs of a hypocrite are three. You know how you say that, I want to maintain a transparent life, I want my business to be transparent. What does that mean? Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam teaches us in this hadith three things. If you want to know somebody who's not transparent, somebody who has inconsistency and hypocrisy, look at the following. Number one, إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ. Whenever this person speaks, he's always lying. Whenever this person speaks, he's always lying. Meaning, you can never be sure, is this person telling the whole truth or not? And even when he's telling the truth, is he embellishing the truth? Is he bending the truth? Is it everything that I'm getting? You know how there's some people who blow everything out of proportion? You ask a person a very simple thing, what happened today? And he'll give you this entire story about what happened. This is part of it as well, being careful about what you say. Number two, وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ. And when this person makes a promise, he breaks his promise. And number three, وَإِذَا اؤْتُمِنَ خَانَ. When he is given a trust, he breaks his trust and he breaches his trust. He breaks his trust and he breaches his trust. So the first part is إِذَا حَدَّثَ كَذَبَ. That when a person speaks, كَذَبَ, he lies. In our minds, we always think to ourselves, you know what, I don't lie. I'm not going to outright make up something. But we have to understand when it comes to lying, not telling the whole truth is also a form of lying. Not telling the whole truth. Let's say, for instance, somebody asks me, okay, what did you do today? And I went to work. But then I add a bit to this side and I add a bit to that side. I embellish the story. Even though at the heart of what I'm saying is truth, it's still considered a lie because that's not exactly what happened. We have to be very careful not to engage in lying. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that you're not allowed to lie except in a few scenarios. You're only allowed to lie in a few scenarios, and even in those scenarios, it's not so much a lying. For instance, if two people are fighting, you are allowed to bend the truth just so that you can get them close together. So I gave this example before. If I know two people are disputing, I can go to one and say, oh, by the way, you know that person's been talking good about you. Did he actually talk good about him? Not necessarily. But I'm allowed to bend the truth when my intentions are noble. So that's the first time. The second time also that's kind of, encouraged is, in your interactions with other people. I come home, the food that my mother cooked or that my wife cooked, it doesn't taste too good, for instance. There's not enough salt, or there's something that, doesn't taste too good. When I eat it, I feel like, you know what, this isn't nice. And if she asks me, how is the food? I don't have to go and say, oh yeah, by the way, the food that you cooked today, there's not enough salt, you can add a bit more masala over here, the rice isn't too good, the chicken is a bit old, and this and this and this. No. I'm allowed to bend the truth a bit, go like, alhamdulillah, it was good. So there are only a few instances where I'm allowed to bend the truth. Apart from that, I should be very careful of the words that I say and the way that I say it. So that's the first. The second is, وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ. When they make a promise, they break their promise. Whenever they make a promise, they break the promise. Meaning, if I tell somebody, look, I'm going to be available tomorrow at 5 o'clock. And then I come at 6 o'clock. I gave him my word and I broke my word. And this is an unfortunate reality of our culture today. You know how, as a joke, a lot of times a person says, okay, come at 3 o'clock for the dawat. And they'll say, oh, Desi time central. What time are you on, Desi time or normal time? I mean, we laugh about this because it's funny, but then again, it's sad. Do you laugh or do you cry about this? Because we've reached such a point, subhanAllah, I remember once, not once, this happened multiple times, where, I would have to lead salah over here, I would have some responsibility, whatever the case is, and somebody would say, okay, everybody, invitation is after Maghrib. Everybody, invitation is after Maghrib. Let's say Maghrib is at 7:30. And I think to myself, if the invitation is after Maghrib, I can't come here and lead salah, I'll tell somebody, just cover for me, lead salah. I come to the house, forget about other guests being there, the host isn't even there. You're going in there wondering what's happening? There's nobody in this house. And then eventually people slowly start coming in and one person comes, the second person comes, half an hour, 45 minutes, 1 hour, and then it's me, the host, and maybe one other person comes. So say, what happened? Oh, you know what it means. When you say after Maghrib, we're talking about after Isha. I said, how could you say after Maghrib and your meaning is after Isha? They're two completely different times. If it's after Isha, it's after Isha. But the problem is we've become so lazy with our timings, we don't realize that people have different timings. And then after Isha, people slowly start coming in. To the point that if you ask one person that, wait, weren't you supposed to come after Maghrib? And he said, if I come after Maghrib, nobody's going to be over there. You ask the second person, wasn't it after Maghrib? Man, if I come after Maghrib, nobody's going to be over there. Problem is, if everybody thinks like this, nobody's going to be over there. The famous story about the king? We heard the story. The king tells somebody, okay, everybody go, and I want this pool filled with milk. Everybody has to put 1 cup inside of milk. And the next morning, the king wakes up and he sees the entire pool is filled with water and there's no milk. So he asks, what happened? The first person, he says, oh, I came last night, I wanted to put milk, and I said, okay, there's 100 people who are going to put milk inside of this. If I put 1 glass of water, what's the problem? The second person says, oh, I thought the exact same thing. If I put 1 glass of water, there's another 100 people putting milk. What's the difference? Problem is, 100 people thought exactly the same way, and instead of a pool of milk, we now have a pool of water. This culture that we've created, and I'm telling you, I'm equally guilty of this. All of us, we have a role to play in this. We need to learn to reverse this culture, because this culture ends up making things very uncertain. Another example, in our culture, this is very interesting. When I say our culture, it's not necessarily everybody. This happens sometimes as well. You're eating food, and you offer somebody food, and you'll say, brother, do you want some food? Let's say there's a lot of food over there, and you ask the person, or you go to somebody's house, and then he says to him, no takalluf, do you want to eat some food? And you respond by saying, no, it's fine, mashallah, I have food, everything is good. And the guy says, okay, mashallah, the person said it's good, so I'm not going to give him food. Now this guy, he gets angry. He goes back home and tells his wife, I went to this person's house, he doesn't give me a single morsel of food, he doesn't give me anything, mashallah, his fridge is filled with food, but he's not giving me anything. When he offered you the food, you said, no takalluf, but all of a sudden now you're upset that you're not getting food. Now, my point of saying this is perhaps in some cultures this is common, but not everybody understands this. I'm telling you a real life story that happened where we all went somewhere. I went with a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, and we're going over there to the person's house, and none of us had lunch. So it just so happened that the host, there was a miscommunication, and the host, he's speaking to my friend, and we all assumed we're coming to eat, and the host didn't understand. He thought we came to just, get together and have a good time. So he asked my friend, mashallah, if nobody ate, should I order some food and should we eat? I said, no takalluf, you don't have to worry about anything. And I look at him and I say, what are you talking about, no takalluf? I thought we came here to eat. What's happening? And he said, no takalluf. Now he put me in a weird situation where I'm thinking, he said no takalluf, and I say, oh yeah, you know what, do takalluf, you're perfectly fine, go get me the food. We're going to be in a weird scenario. Now after everything was done, we're going back, and this person is telling me, he's like, man, some people, they don't get a hint. When you're saying no takalluf, you're actually saying do as much as takalluf and give me all the food that you have. How on earth is this person supposed to know? There's a lot of small things that we do day to day where we don't even realize we're saying one thing and we expect something completely different to happen. Another example, if somebody is coming and asking me for help, if I cannot help that person, let me flat out say, no, I cannot help you. Don't let me keep a person on a leash, on a hook, where they keep thinking the person's gonna help. Recently, a person came to me and he complained, not even in this state, in another state. He said, I have a group of friends and I've always wanted to purchase a home, and I don't want to take a loan from here, I don't want to take a loan from there. I just want to buy the home in a halal way. So a group of my friends, I asked them, I said, look, in 3-4 years, I want to buy a home. I just want to take a loan from all of you people, a halal loan where there's going to be no interest, nothing. You 4 close friends of mine, let me do it. I'm not buying a house now. I want to have enough money, and then 3-4 years down the line, I want, you guys can help me out. We're very close friends. We grew up together. He then says, after 4 years, when we're about to buy the house, I come back to my friends, and now they're like, yeah, maybe, I'm not sure, we didn't know you were serious, and not a single one of them came up. And he says, I'm in such a weird predicament right now. There were so many homes I could have bought 4 years ago, but I waited some time because I thought my friends were going to help. Now, it's not sinful on them. Why? Because maybe there was a darura scenario, something happened, but we have to understand, when we say something, we have to mean something. We can't say something and expect somebody to understand something completely differently. When we promise something, let's try our best to complete that promise. Yes, if I have a real serious inability to help, I will go ahead and say, I'm sorry, I apologize, I'm unable to do it, but soon I will help you. So one of the signs of transparency is وَإِذَا وَعَدَ أَخْلَفَ. You make a promise, and unfortunately, you're unable to fulfill that promise. And the last part is, وَإِذَا اؤْتُمِنَ خَانَ. When somebody gives you something of trust, never go and tell somebody else. Never go and tell somebody else. When you don't go tell somebody else means you also don't tell your spouse. Sometimes what happens is we find out private things about people. Somebody will come to me and say, oh, I have this problem with my wife, I have this problem with my daughter, I have this problem with my parents, I have this problem in my business, I'm suffering like this, I did this sin, I did this. Sheikh, can you give me some? I have no right to now go home and say, oh yeah, by the way, yesterday I was in the masjid and this person came to me and said this. I have absolutely no right. My mouth has to be sealed. When somebody puts something in my ear about their personal life, even if my mother asks me, oh, what happened? I heard you speaking. Can you tell me? Even if my own mom asks me, my own father asks me, I have no right. This also applies in our family dynamics. If my wife says something to me, I don't necessarily have to go and tell my mother and father. If my mother and father tell me something, I don't necessarily have to go say all those secrets to my wife. If my brother tells me something, I don't have to tell my sister. My sister tells me something, I don't have to tell my brother. There has to be a degree of trust in our lives. And when we don't have this trust and we don't have this transparency, it really affects our personality. So in summary, Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he reminds us that there are 3 signs for somebody who is a hypocrite. There are 3 signs who are a hypocrite. Number 1, that every time they speak, they're bending the truth. Number 2, whenever they say something, they break their promise. And number 3, when somebody trusts them with something, they go and tell the whole world. They go and tell the whole world. And this is not something that is becoming of a Muslim. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us all tawfiq to avoid the qualities of being a munafiq, and may He make us the qualities of being a mu'min and truthfulness. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Subhanallah wa bihamdih. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خيرا والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.